So this morning we were working with the courage, and which is the red in the heart center, and another expression or another phenomena that comes out from the red is the experience of strength. We all know what strength is. But I think culturally, especially for men, being strong is more about doing how many push-ups you can do, like rather than emotional strength or mental strength. So there are a lot of misconceptions around what is to be strong. It seems that being strong is not to be weak. It seems to be either strong or weak. Here we are saying the strength to be vulnerable, for example. So the strength and softness can come together. It's not this kind of harsh strength of the archetype of the macho man, let's say, just to be clear, no offense. No offense for any of us machos. So, what happens in the child as we grow up, as we let go of this inner strength and fire, one of the difficulties about connecting with strength again is our pretense about being strong. So the ego, this is an important concept to understand. The ego, in order to compensate for the loss of the essential qualities, is pretending. Is pretending, yes, I'm strong, I can do it. It's, you see that often in, excuse me for the macho man, but you can see often on the macho attitude, there is a pretense. There often you can see that there is weakness inside, but they're pretending to be strong and they have to show this, how strong they are, and then inside they are little children. So this is the archetype of this, what principle I'm trying to highlight. So pretense often becomes a barrier to really do something. Pretending, sometimes we need to collapse, let go before the energy comes. We need to surrender before we can do something. We're trying to understand the ways in which our ego is pretending to be strong. And we more or less have some of these ways. I will talk about it a little bit. So we ask, many of you were asking, how do we find out things? How do we discover the difference between our essence and our ego? Here we're going to look at some of the ego attitudes, ego patterns that are not natural expression of the strength. Yes, it's just few examples about how the ego is maybe pretending to emulate the strength essence. I think I forgot a few. So sometimes we are pretending that we can do something even when we cannot do it. Like, yes, I can, it doesn't matter. We don't even consider our limitation. We don't even say, okay, I could try, but we are pretending that we can do it. We're kind of lying to ourselves or to others. Sometimes we are defensive when we feel vulnerable. So the ego is thinking that being strong is not being vulnerable. So we become defensive when we are vulnerable. Yeah? I forgot to write these ones. Some people can become very mentally, like always argumentative. We want to prove our point all the time, that we know better. We, like today I was saying, being open to other people's opinion. Sometimes we are not. We just think we know better. We're not even listening. So it makes us feel strong. But it's false. It's not, I mean, it's kind of imitation strength. It's how the ego trying to imitate the real strength. Taking rigid positions about things, taking a position. No, it's like that. They don't even listen anymore. We don't even listen anymore. That's it. I made up my mind, this person is like that, and we take that position, and we feel strong in that position. That is rigid. It's very rigid. Strength would be, okay, let me see, am I right, am I wrong? What is the position? What is the point of the other person? Pushing ourselves before we are ready to do something. It's false. I mean, pretending to be strong, not keeping in touch with our limitations, not being sensitive to ourselves. Overworking. Counterphobic behavior, like going against our own fears.
Going against?
The fear. Counterphobic, we pretend we don't have the fear, we do even more difficult things. Sexual conquest. Some people feel strong when they're seducing somebody. They feel like there's strength in that conquest. Controlling, being pushy, pushing other people to do it as we think is right. Like sometimes we don't listen. We push the other person to do things as we think they should be doing it. Sometimes parents do that a lot with children. Being hard-headed and difficulty acknowledging our own challenges. Like saying, well, this is going to be difficult for me to do that. We have difficulty. The ego doesn't have as difficulty acknowledge the challenges of life or situations. So this is just to highlight some of the ways in which we may pretend, the ego pretend to be strong, and in that way we block our real strength, because our real strength is always there. But if we pretend, it's not coming in the way that it would respond to the situation. Because the situation sometimes requires that I may be giving a little bit of space to the other people. Somebody I'm flexible. But the ego is taking very rigid positions, and those positions they don't allow me to be natural, to be responsive. I'm reactive rather than responsive to the situation.